It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Hello there. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? We've got Fred Rubino here today and Shane Wilson. First up is Fred, or Freddy. He is a stand-up comic. He's also got a Facebook Live show that he does. And he does some kind of a cocktail hour as well as cooking. He'll tell us all about that. And in the second half of the show, we have Shane Wilson, who is an author, teacher, and musician. And we'll be talking about all of those things, as well as a couple of books that he has written. Before we get to the interviews, though, we have a very special track to play. This one was a Music X-Ray submission. Thank you very much to everybody who is submitting on Music X-Ray. We get lots of great submissions through them, and we're always happy to play great music here on the show. This one is called Barren Saturday, New Orleans Blues, and the artist is a Dutch artist, I believe, and his name is Gus, spelled G-U-U-S. It's pronounced totally different in Dutch, but I'm not even going to attempt it. He was nice enough to actually send an MP3 of the way that you're supposed to pronounce his name in Dutch, but it's impossible, I think, for English-speaking people unless they practice a lot. So we're just going to call him Gus with two U's. So here is his track, Barren Saturday.
I'm coming as fast as I can.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Ooh, don't know my own strength.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Freddy Rubino. Hey, Freddy, how are you?
Yeah, you should have like a little canned like applause. You know what I'm saying?
We can add that in.
you know, like a stadium thing. You know?
Yeah, you want some applause? Yeah, we'll put that on. We can put that on there. No problem.
Thank you. It's not that I have an ego. It's just that.
Well,
I like to hear applause.
Well, maybe it'll get you excited. Get the audience riled up too.
There you go. That's what I like to hear. A riled up audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are a stand-up comic from New York City, yeah, in Brooklyn?
Yeah, the king of Brooklyn.
All right. How long you been doing that?
About 13 years. Seriously, about 6 years.
COVID's kind of screwed that up for performing artists, yeah?
Oh, yeah. COVID killed everything. COVID killed the entertainment industry. I mean, from the top to the bottom, from Hollywood to big blockbuster people to Broadway, live shows, all the way down to stand-up comedy in small clubs.
Yeah, it's been tough. I know. I get a lot of entertainment people on this show, and people are out of work. They're getting no money coming in. They've gone to live streaming, but it's not the same thing, Have you done any of that? Have you done any online live streaming? Hard to do stand-up.
Well, I don't do stand-up on the live streaming. I think it's ridiculous. It's so hard. Even like Netflix, when you look at Netflix and you're in your home and you're sober and you're watching these guys tell jokes, it's like it's not as good. And then you go see the same guy do the same thing in a club, and it's funny. So it's a real different atmosphere. But what I do is I tell my fans I have a thing called a Zoom cocktail party. And what it is just like 15 to 20 people. We go on, and I talk to everybody individually, and we joke around, and we have a cocktail. So it's interactive. I joke around, but it's not stand-up comedy.
You kind of need that audience reaction, don't you? Because otherwise it's like talking to the wall.
Yeah, otherwise it's like you're married, and it's just no one's listening. It's like you're married to everybody watching.
Yeah. So how did you get started in this business?
I started because I always was like the funny guy. I was always somebody that puts a twist on something and makes it funny. And then my kids went to high school. I couldn't afford it. And I seen people making money on stand-up. I said, let me go see if I could do it. So I gave it a shot. It didn't happen right away. But after a while, I started getting gigs, and I started making some money, and I ended up paying for their high school. So it was really a necessity.
I had a couple of stand-ups on in the past, and actually John Biner was one of the ones I had on. Do you remember him?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And, they were talking about how little stand-ups get paid. I mean, even today, that the gigs at some of these places, like you might get $100 for the night. Is that still what they're paying?
Well, before COVID, you have these clubs that are paying maybe like $2 and change. Some of them, if you do an hour, it's $300 maybe, and that's a good club. A lot of clubs are really poor with their pay. And with me, I had a job. I worked construction. So I wouldn't even take those jobs. I'd say I'd rather stay home. But what happened was I started doing videos on Facebook, and I started getting my own following. So I started to demand more money. So the thing is that if people come out to see you and you could just draw people, then you demand more money. And if nobody comes to see you, and then you just got to get whatever they pay. But yeah, it's sometimes it's just not even worth going out to do the show. That's how little it is.
Well, the one good thing about the internet is you can do it yourself. I mean, the internet opened up markets for just about anything and everything. And if you've got the determination and some skills on how to put that all together, I mean, people are doing well. There's people out there making a lot of money just doing stuff online. But it is a big market. Yeah. You're competing with everyone.
You are.
So-
And like I said, I've had clubs that say, "Yeah, come down. I'll give you $200. We'll do, a couple of shows." And I was like, you know what? I'll go to a restaurant a half a mile from that club and say, "Let's have a dinner show," and I'll get a percentage of the door, and I'll make 5 times what the guy was going to pay me, because I draw people from Facebook. They're fans of my Facebook page, of my constant telling jokes and doing skits, so they come out. So that's what these guys don't realize. Once you have a following, you don't need to take those gigs. You just go and do your own thing.
Yeah. I want to read this bit off your bio here. It said, the basis for his comedy material and the humor and hilarity of growing up Italian in Brooklyn. Is it that funny to be Italian growing up in Brooklyn?
When you're doing it, you didn't think it was funny, but when you look back and you say, "Oh my God, is that what we did?" and you know, the thing is also, so many people in the United States, their families or someone they know close, have come through Brooklyn. It's amazing. I think the number is like 1 out of 5 people in America know someone who's lived in Brooklyn. So it's more relatable than you think. And of course, because it's like Italian immigrants, we had our own way of doing things. And when you look back at it now, some of it's just insane. Just the cooking and the all the customs that we had. And and you know what's so funny about it? I didn't realize when I start saying these things in clubs, you get people who are like first or second generation Puerto Rican or South American. Same thing. It must just be an immigrant thing.
Well, New York has always been an immigrant city, and it always had all these little neighborhoods. I don't know if it's still like that now. I mean, I lived there for 2 years in 1980 to like 82 in Manhattan, but you would get, there was all these little districts, and this is the Italian area, this is the Jewish area, this was the Irish area. And, I mean, is it still like that, or is just everybody kind of melted together?
What happens? Neighborhoods shift.
Yeah.
So, like, the big Italian neighborhood now, it turned to, like, an Asian neighborhood. And then the Italian neighborhood went to Staten Island. So that's the big Italian area now. And, things shift. But it's still pockets of stuff. And just like what you said, if I'm in a club and I'm talking about how crazy my grandmother or my parents were growing up, the Jewish guy go, "Oh, my mother was just like that." And the Puerto Rican, the Spanish guy, "Oh my God, my mother was just like my grandmother did the exact same thing." So people don't think it's relatable. People think that everything they do is so unique, and then when you get out there and you see it, it's not that unique. I have Indian people coming up to me, "Oh my God, my grandmother was the same." I was like, "Oh my God."
I had a guy on named Ted Balaker who did a documentary film called "Can We Take a Joke?" And he had a lot of fairly famous stand-up people on there. Lisa Lampanelli was on there, Penn Jillette, Gilbert Godfrey, Adam Carolla, a bunch of people. And they were all talking about this cancel culture and politically correct culture on the college campuses specifically that was making it very difficult for stand-up comics because their material sometimes wasn't politically correct. And how the shift has gone from when you go back to people like Lenny Bruce back in the 60s, who that was the whole point, was he was pushing the envelope, talking about sex and talking about things that, the respectable society didn't want to hear. But the college campuses loved that because they were the ones pushing society to more modern sort of ways of thinking. Now, according to this bio, it's shifted back the other direction. What do you think? Have you encountered any of that in your travels as a stand-up?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely. That's so spot on. And here's the thing. When you know about it, especially if you know about a comedian, if you know what he's going to talk about, if you know what kind of humor he's doing, you just go and appreciate that. You know, if I'm on the other side of the political aisle, but you're still being funny, but you're joking, you're making a joke about my political affiliation, but it's funny, just laugh at it. But what's happening now, especially on college campuses, it's rampant. They're encouraging these young people to just look for things to be offended at, interject. Sometimes you see these white kids, I'm so offended what you said about black people, and the black people are laughing, and you're like, don't you understand? You're here to laugh. It's a comedy show. It's not the History Channel. It's not things like that. These kids now are being programmed to look and to see if you could possibly be taken as racist or offensive, and then run with it. They're encouraged, run with it, scream about it, get people together, try and tell these people it's not right. And it's just as stifling to the arts as could be. It's just totally stifling. And it's not freedom of speech anymore. I mean, like I said, I've gone to shows where people were made fun of, groups of people, and 5 different groups of people. Nobody got offended, but then there's only the young. It's a young thing. It's a young generation, and 60s, the young generation was the opposite.
Right. Say
anything, do anything. Freedom of speech, freedom to do what you want and not be judged. Move on. If you don't like it, just let those people do what they want. Now it's the exact opposite. And all those old hippies right now must be just shaking their heads saying, what went wrong?
It is amazing. And, people that I liked back in the day, like I really liked Freddie Prinze Sr. I thought he was hysterical. And he made fun of everyone, including himself. And I look at him and going, you know what? He'd never make it on college campuses today. Never.
Oh, never. None of them would.
No.
I mean, Seinfeld is the most mild, vanilla comedy of the 90s.
Yeah.
And 2000s. He even gets, oh, you know what? You can't say that anymore. That's racism. If Seinfeld is racist, I mean, Red Fox would come out, Richard Pryor, all those guys were so dirty, Jackie Mason was racist, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, or even like Rickles. Can you imagine?
Oh, forget it. Rickles is like the complete, it's like anti-college.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If there was a statue of Rickles, they'd tear it down.
Also on your bio here, it says you appeared on Radio's Opie and Anthony. I remember those guys when they were on WAAF in Boston, and then they moved to. When were you on there? When they were on Sirius satellite radio?
Yeah. No. It was on. I believe it was on regular radio.
Okay.
It was before Sirius.
All right.
I don't think Sirius was even invented yet.
Are they still around?
So it must have been like 12 years ago.
They still around?
I think they split. So there's like an Opie show and
okay,
something like that. I just started out, and they had a thing on the radio, and they said, send us your best 1 minute, and if we pick the top 10, whoever send it in, New York area, there's 10 million people, so they said send a minute in of your, and no matter what it is, and they have like an offensive audience, so you could be as offensive as you want. And I sent it in, and like a day before, they called me up and they said, hey, we picked you as one of our top 10 funniest listeners. And then it was in a big club, and you just went and did your set at the club. It was packed. It was like the first time I ever played in front of a packed house. It was fantastic.
We do got to wind this down. Do you have anything going on that you want to promote? Any live streams? Any upcoming? I guess you wouldn't have too much live event just now, right?
Well, I tell you, I'm in Florida, and Florida is starting to open up. So
okay, cool.
So if you go to my website, fredrubino.com, I update my website every week, and I'm starting to get a few shows booked. So, come over and see me on Facebook. I have a live cooking show on Facebook. I have all kinds of live videos and stuff on Facebook to entertain you for free during the lockdown.
A cooking show?
Yeah, I do like a comedy cooking show. It's a real cooking show with a lot of great recipes. But I'm doing my thing.
Italian food?
Oh yeah, Italian food, or like really traditional things like a mac and cheese or something like that. Whatever we feel like making and whatever we know we can make. That's like a little twist to it. Until comedy's I guess comedy has to evolve now. I might start juggling vaccine needles, on stage. I don't know.
Well, Freddie, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing. Best of luck, and I hope to God this COVID thing just gets done with so we can get back to our lives. It's been crazy the last year.
Well, I'm going to try and get a life, and then once I get it, I'll try and keep it.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Nice talking to you.
Thank you, pal. I appreciate it.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Love coffee, huh? But wait a minute. It seems like every time you finish a cup of coffee, you get all of these side effects along with it. Heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, acid reflux. As the world's first and only organic acid-free coffee, Tyler's Coffee is able to provide a healthier option in the solution for more than 100 million individuals who have sensitive stomachs or suffer from acid-related modalities. This is Tyler's acid-free coffee. Coffee without the consequences.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions. You're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
Okay, please welcome to The Douglas Coleman Show, Shane Wilson. Hi, Shane. How are you?
I'm good, Douglas. How you doing?
Oh, doing fine, thank you. You are an author, yes?
I am, yeah, indeed.
And also a musician, according to your bio.
Yeah, that's right. I do a little bit of both of those things, and I think that those two things are probably very much connected in me and my work.
I would agree. Oh, which one did you start doing first?
So I've been a writer for basically forever, and the music came from a desire to write about musicians and write about making music. And so from that came this desire to know more about that process and know what that feels like. To know what making music feels like in a sort of physical sense, right? What do the strings on the guitar feel like under your fingers? And so while I was working on my second novel, The Smoke in His Eyes, which is about musicians, I taught myself to play guitar while I was writing that novel. And then from learning how to stitch together a few chords and learn how to play a couple of songs that I actually really liked, came this new appreciation and new love of music and composition of music. And then from that, of course, I think it's a pretty short walk to starting to write your own songs. Do you write lyrics as well? Yeah, for sure. I think I would say that my music is pretty simplistic in a compositional sort of sense. And its real emphasis is on the lyrical nature of that music. I would consider myself a storyteller throughout all of my work, and that is the same for music. I think that the driving force at the center of my music is the story and the lyrics.
Well, it's an interesting compare and contrast topic because I'm also a musician. I have been for my whole life. I've never written a novel, but I've written 2 screenplays, which I don't know if you've written a screenplay, but it's sort of the diametric opposite of writing a novel. And it takes a bit of getting used to being very minimal.
As close as I've gotten to a screenplay is a stage adaptation. So I've done a stage play.
Well, I would say that's fairly close, yeah?
Yeah.
It's just the blocking would be different. But
right.
To write lyrics is, I don't know if that's even comparable, though. I mean, because it is and it isn't. I mean, which would you think it's closer to? Writing lyrics would be closer to writing a screenplay or writing a novel? I'd say a screenplay.
Yeah, I think I agree with that because I think that the nature of songwriting is there's a real economy of language at play there. It's like writing poetry, right?
Yeah.
Every word has to be incredibly loaded, and every word has to matter. Whereas in a novel, of course, you want to believe that every word matters, but you leave everything on the page in a novel. In songwriting or even in script writing, I think that you leave a lot up to the collaboration with either the director or the listener, right? Like it's up to that person to fill in a lot of the story.
Oh, well, I agree. And if it's a screenplay, then the film itself is going to fill in all the details that the novel would have done by written word. So, yeah, minimalism is really the the word to use there. Because, I don't know, songs, I can't think of too many songs that I ever heard that I thought, oh, God, is that so wordy or what?
Right, yeah.
You know,
I think probably the biggest culprit of wordy songwriting is probably Bruce Springsteen's debut. He was a little wordy there. He got better as he went, but
I'll agree with that. Yeah,
pretty wordy.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. On the other hand, there are some bands that I've heard that were very musically wordy, if there's such a phrase, where they just had way too many notes and chords and things going all on at the same time, that the music to me sounded neurotic.
Yeah, it gets really busy, right? And you can I think you can lose something in that. And that's one reason why I do have musical collaborators that I work with, but I don't bring in too many extra musicians at once because I do think that if things get too musically busy, it can kind of muddy things up. And of course, that's an aesthetic choice, right? A lot of people really like busy music. I think for me, metal is very busy, and it's just not my forte, right? It's just not something that my ears like to listen to, but it's definitely a valid form, I think, and a lot of people get great enjoyment out of it. But for me, it's too busy. It's hard for me to find like the lyrical thread in that, you know?
One of the other conversations that I have with musicians and authors who I've had on the show is technology and how since the advent of the internet, technology has essentially changed the world and all of our lives and the way we live and how we interact with our machine friends. I use that term very loosely. But I don't know that technology has influenced writers, word writers, to that degree that it has with music writers.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think that when you look at what the internet has meant for, or the internet and computers in general, what it has meant for the music industry and just the advent of digital recording and the ability to collaborate with people over very large distances, I think that the possibilities on the music side of things have been more fully realized than maybe on the writer side of things. I mean, I think that writers are probably really excited that word processors exist and that they don't have to use whiteout on typewriters anymore. And I think that technology has helped writers. It's helped democratize writing in a way through self-publishing and things like that.
True. Yeah.
Which is, I think, an important evolution in that industry. But the actual work of the writing doesn't really change. It's just sort of what you're able to do with it once it's done, I think, has changed as a result of technology.
Right, I would agree. However, music, the actual creation of music has been changed by digital because now computers can actually make the noise.
Yeah, right. You don't even have to have an instrument anymore.
Right. But with a writer, you still have to be able to write. I don't know of any computer programs that can write a novel.
That's really interesting. There are a lot of these AI bots that they have that they can feed a bunch of data to, and then it can churn out a screenplay or it can churn out a novel or whatever. But it never makes any sense. It's not that far along yet, but it is really funny to read. If you feed a bot every episode of The Office and then ask it to write an episode of The Office, what does it sound like? And that stuff is kind of interesting, but it is not yet to the place where you can absolutely replace the writer on the other side.
The human.
And I think that's because the writer's instrument is his brain, right? Like the musician's instrument is his brain, but also the instrument. And the computer can replace an instrument, but I don't think that a computer can yet replace a brain.
Well, I would agree to a point, but what I really would emphasize is that the computer can't replace the soul.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that we have as human beings that computers haven't got there yet.
Yeah, because a computer can look at a script and sort of understand what's happening formulaically, right, and syntactically, but it can't get at the heart of it.
Right, the emotion of it.
Yeah.
The emotion is lost in the ones and zeros.
I completely agree.
Yeah. And that's where my complaint has been about music that is too over computerized. Because once you take the human fingerprint out of it, it becomes soulless. It becomes thin. It doesn't make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up like a great singer would.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean?
Because some EDM music, electronic dance music and techno and stuff like that is so digital that even if there are any words in it, even those words have been processed and filtered so much that they become robotic and devoid of any emotion as well, right? And I think that's one reason why I really like the acoustic mode. And when I'm putting out a record next month. That record it was mostly recorded. Each track is recorded just one time through. I'm not trying to go back and perfect every little thing there. I mean, if something is glaringly wrong, then yeah, we'll try to fix that. But I wanted those songs to feel alive, right? For all of, if my voice is a little pitchy here or there, I think that means that it's a little bit more alive. If the chord on the guitar frays a little bit, then I think that maybe that makes it feel a little bit more alive in some way, or at least more authentic.
And see, I'm even very old school when it comes to the tempo of music, because these days most people use a click track, and I don't like them because click tracks tend to format or direct the tempo of the song. And some songs require you to speed up and slow down in different parts. And I just don't like having it tick, 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 tick. It makes me crazy.
I tried to play a couple of times with a click track, and I cannot vibe like that at all. It becomes, I don't know, too mechanical.
Too mechanical. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when I am recording, when I'm in that moment, I want to be able to give myself permission to breathe in that moment and to live in that musical moment for as long as I feel like it's necessary. I don't need the pressure of that click, click, click of that metronome right there pushing me forward.
Let's talk a little bit about your books. How many have you written?
Yeah, so there are 2 novels, and then there's the stage adaptation. And the stage adaptation is based on a short story that I wrote a few years back. And the stage play is called The Boy Who Kissed the Rain, and it really started as just a thought experiment. I was a theater major for a little while when I was in college, and really liked live theater. And so I thought, let's see what it would look like to take this story that I wrote and adapt it for the stage. And so that was a fun experience. And then the two novels are A Year Since the Rain and The Smoke in His Eyes.
Okay, and you said that one was based, The Smoke in His Eyes was sort of based on the actual creation of music?
Yeah, so I found once I had published A Year Since the Rain, I was in my late 20s, and I started having a lot of thoughts about that I think a lot of artists probably have, and that is, who am I, right? What makes me so special that I believe that I have something that people want to read? And that line of questioning really led me through a sort of a soul searching about the creative process in general, and what it is that makes some people want to make art and other people not, and then what makes the people who make art, what divides them into the people who make it for themselves, and then what makes some of those artists, gives them the desire to share that art with anybody who will read it or consume it, right? Like, I think that the creative impulse lives in us in different ways and manifests itself in different ways, and I was really curious about the different manifestations of that. And so I decided to explore that in my second novel, The Smoke in His Eyes. And so The Smoke in His Eyes focuses on two musicians and a visual artist, and it kind of explores the different stimuli that they have for creation and what their individual goals are. They all sort of want different things out of their art. And so that's where that book came from, and that was the goal of it, was to sort of think through the different things that we want out of creation.
Did you throw money into that mix anywhere in that story?
Did I throw money into that? No, I didn't, no.
The reason I say it like that, and
well, actually, no. I mean, there is one for sure. Yeah, one of the characters initially is interested in financial gains because
okay, that's what I meant.
She comes from nothing. Her family was very poor, and she thought that she could use her art as a way of
making money,
of, like, helping them, right? Yeah. So that is definitely one of the driving forces for one of the characters.
Okay, which is absolutely the worst reason to go and become an artist, a serious artist anyways, because...
Right, and in her story, she does sort of come to that realization that she sort of loses herself to it.
Yeah. There's a great line that says, it's amazing how successful one can be in the creative endeavors and make absolutely no money. And it's true.
Right, yeah.
You know, success in this business does not always equate to financial gain. You can be famous, you can be revered, adored, and be very poor at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's purely a byproduct of living in a capitalist society that people even imagine that artists are typically well off, right? Like, they're like, oh, you published a book, you've made it, right? Like, now you've got all this money. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, honestly, like, I don't even know that I would be sustained if I landed something on the New York Times bestseller list, right? I mean, that would be nice for a little while, but that's no way to live, you know?
It's not a 9-to-5 job with a pension plan after 20 years.
And there's not.
That's for sure.
And chasing the dollar is really no way to go about the work either, right? I mean, if that's always sort of in the forefront of your mind, how to sell this thing, how to make money off of this thing,
right?
That I think that leads you to a really inauthentic place.
Well, it's true, and it's also the battle between. I had this discussion last night, as a matter of fact, with somebody who is in a similar business as I am, and it said it's always the battle between quality content and marketable content, and they don't always intersect. So my attitude was just do a couple of them. Do one for money, do one for yourself, you know, just that way. So you balance it out, you know, because it's the only way you can survive in this, unless you've got a rich father who's just going to support you, or millions in the bank already from your inheritance. But if you're not one of those people, then you've really got to compromise, do something on one side, and then, do the other one for yourself.
Yeah, I've always been really lucky that I teach at a college and full time, and have since I graduated with my master's in English. And so I've been really lucky in that I have this job that allows me to indulge in my artistic side, right?
Yeah, that's great. We do have to wrap this up. We are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yeah, absolutely. People can find everything that they want to know about Shane Wilson over at ShaneWilsonAuthor.com.
Well, thank you for coming on the show and sharing. It was a nice conversation. Best of luck with your books and your work and your music.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.